The patterns and pressures are clear. Trump lawyer Chesebro today admitting he committed to this felony count, and that's the fraudulent elector scheme. Powell was pulled in on something distinctly different, the voting machines plot. Chesebro also, we should remind you, although this was not part of today's hearing, but we do know he was actually at the Capitol on Jan 6. There's footage of this where reportedly he's in the hat and dark jacket captured by these people who all were making films of themselves while some of them were criming. Now, there is not evidence, I want to be careful to say, based on those videos that he entered the Capitol, that he committed a crime on that site, although today he is a convict for other measures taken to try to steal the election. Now, as we've laid out, I want to update this with you because we updated it yesterday and we have more updates today. This was a complex, multi-pronged plot to try to steal an election with the lawful president-elect Biden working on his transition. We know how long it ran. That's why you see it went all the way up through January. Now, I'm going to show you, you have the electors, Georgia overturning votes, the plot with Pence, and DOJ interference. Everything you see on your screen is what we have charted as the many plots. Now, DA Willis has an indictment that implicated 6 of them by our count. Now, these arrows, of course, involve many things that the Jan 6 committee and our own reporting here at MSNBC has been tracking. So what I'm showing you now in this update with the yellow is how many of those distinct plots the DA in her wide-ranging case indicted based on Georgia law, as you can see, most of them. Now, in the last 2 days, she has 1 convictions in 2 of them. What you see right here is new this week. Last week, none of these would have been read. This week, yesterday and today, there are now 2 convicted plots at least, the electors plot and the voting data breach in Georgia. The indictment specifically pins Chesebro for conspiring to enter those fake fraudulent documents of a Trump victory there using the electors. So you have 2 key players promising now to testify against their co-defendants. And the highest profile targets are, of course, the other lawyers and aides who were pulled into all this. And more than anyone, of course, Mark Meadows, who has so many of the keys to so many of the conversations. Remember, Meadows already testified in Georgia only because of the pressure put on by this DA. Because, unlike the federal case where he's just waiting to find out if he might ever be indicted later or anything could happen, here he got his mugshot, he got his booking. He is wondering what's going to happen if he was as close to trial as these other 2 who just pled out. And it didn't work well when he testified. It might give him a taste of how the process can be. The Times said his whole approach has been a high-stakes gamble that did not pay off. Indeed, we've heard from prosecutors who've led these kind of cases, like former SDNY Chief David Kelly, and the trouble it spells.
The dominoes are, undoubtedly are going to start falling here. Completely no surprise here.
The dominoes are starting to fall. And I think if I'm Mark Meadows, I'm thinking maybe it's time for this domino to tilt.
That's what former prosecutor Kelly told us on both of the nights that we had earlier plea deals, including last night. Now, this is a 3rd domino. Who might be the 4th? We don't know, but I can tell you there are people in a legally better position to cut a deal. Take a relative newcomer to the scene, who's not like Giuliani or Eastman, Trump lawyer Jenna Ellis, who has her life and career potentially ahead of her and has already publicly turned against aspects of what she says Trump has done. She's publicly complained he's not funding her legal fees as she watches other people cut deals. She now calls him a malignant narcissist. She was, of course, previously, including on this very program, a vocal liar about the election results.
If the United States caves to corruption or this type of election integrity disaster, then no election will be secure from here on out.
The election was stolen and President Trump won by a landslide.
The corruption and the irredeemably challenged and overturned votes.
As many prosecutors have explained, there are only so many tickets out of the station if you're trying to avoid a heavy prison sentence if convicted. All the people I've shown you who have not pled are legally presumed innocent, but they are now facing the prospect of having their own close former colleagues and confidants, their own Trump loyalists say, nope, that person was there. Yep, they were in the meeting. No, they understood it. No, what they said in court or their lawyer said isn't right. That's the heat they're looking at, which makes it more likely that they could be convicted if they don't plea and take it to trial. And then there's the prospect of what that all means for the number one defendant, former President Trump. As promised, we are joined by NYU law professor Melissa Murray. Welcome back during a very busy news time. I want to tell viewers, as I sometimes do, that our team's hard work and we've been juggling stuff. We have some more of that video that I promised from inside the courtroom. So after we start to hear from you, I'm going to play that for everyone and for your response. But first, given what we just walked through, what do you see as important here tonight?
Well, it's exactly as you laid out, Ari. This is sort of a prisoner's dilemma, no pun intended, for the remaining defendants. The prosecutors are not going to be receptive to plea deals indefinitely. So the real question is, who's going to be the last co-defendant standing without a plea deal when the music stops? So there's a lot of incentives, I think, at this point, given the high-profile nature of these two plea deals, to really get their ducks in a row and cut bait with the prosecutors at this point in time. And I think Jenna Ellis is a prime target, but there may be others. And there's other stuff happening in the background. We still have Mark Meadows and his removal to federal court, and whether that will be successful. But it does seem like, as David Kelly says, the dominoes are falling, and there's a lot of wind in the prosecution's sails.
Yeah, and there's many analogies people make. We've all seen the mafia movies. They have some legal details that are in the ballpark and some that are fictionalized. But I think the scenes that many people remember from those films is the so-called loyalty or omerta. When it starts to break, it's one part self-interest, rational, legal. Oh, how does this affect me? And people can make decisions in their lives. But part of it we've seen is often emotional. People are actually shocked, hurt, even angry that the group that they thought they were all sharing loyalty with has had people start to turn. I know you're a law professor and not necessarily a deep student of human psychology and therapy, but it's relevant, I would argue. And I'm curious if you can give us any of your view of how someone like Ms. Ellis, who started to speak out publicly against Trump, might feel, because I'll say I've interviewed her, and again, everyone who hasn't pled is presumed innocent, but when I interviewed her, she was very fired up about the claims she was making at the time. She has walked some of those back under pressure. She's no longer supporting Donald Trump in the political sense. And how might she react to finding out she wakes up and looks around and goes, oh, these other so-called loyalists, they got a ticket. I don't know if they called and gave her a heads up. I don't know if they gave her a courtesy. This is her career. She's got, with a normal lifespan, she's got decades left to figure out how she wants to live.
No, you're right. I am no psychologist, but let me just venture a guess here based on, just human experience. When you are part of a shared enterprise, whether it's a fraternity or a sorority or a club or a criminal conspiracy, there has to be some sense that you are all working toward a common goal. And when it becomes clear that some individuals have defected from that goal, that can be really damaging, disruptive, certainly. And in a situation like this, where there are serious consequences on the line, it's not just, you're not going to have a successful rush period or whatever, but you might actually go to jail. You might be a little more introspective about your loyalty to the group. And certainly you see that other people are also questioning their loyalty to the group. So I think that's just human nature. And, Jenna Ellis has been very clear about her disappointment that her legal bills have not been covered by the Trump organization or by Donald Trump himself. She's referred to him, as you say, as a narcissist. It seems like the wheels are coming off of this clown car.
And then finally, as promised, let's take a look at this video. This is from inside the courtroom today. This is only, as I said, we're just pulling all this. And it's rather extraordinary. In the federal case, as well as the New York case, we don't get video like this. And so seeing is believing for some people. Again, these are individuals who talked a big game, who lied in public, who then claimed they would fight this all off. They're affiliated with the Republican Party that tried to defend part of what happened on January 6th as legitimate legal speech, which is false. Legally, much of what happened on the 6th, of course, has been convicted, including as, according to, for some, sedition. And here's Mr. Chesebro eating his words, going into court, not as a lawyer today, but as a defendant turned convict. We'll play that now.
Mr. Chesebro, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth and the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please lower your hand and state your true and correct legal name.
Kenneth John Chesebro.
And are you the Kenneth John Chesebro named in the indictment 23 SC 188947?
Yes.
Are you under the influence of any drugs, alcohol, or medication today?
No.
How old are you and how far did you go in school, sir?
62, I went through law school.
Are you able to read, write, and understand the English language?
Yes.
Treated there like any other defendant striking a plea. He became a convict. Does that matter for people to see this, Professor?
I mean, I think it's always important when individuals have a sense that the process is working and it works the same way for everyone. And I think the fact that the Georgia proceedings have been televised have really hammered home for the public the way that all of this works. And they've gotten an opportunity to see every turn of this case as it's proceeded. And again, it's really worth noting here, this is perhaps unsurprising that Chesbrough would have pled guilty. He had a pretty rough couple of days before Judge Scott McAfee. The judge ruled that certain testimony, certain documents could be admitted into evidence. These were those plans regarding the alleged faked elector plot. Those could have been hugely damaging as they started trial on October 23rd. So it's not surprising, given that setback in court and the fact that Sidney Powell pled guilty yesterday, that we have this turn of events. And it was reported that Chesbrough had earlier rejected a plea deal, but now seems to have accepted one. Things are really building up here. And again, the prosecution seems to be on a roll.